For me, this is the core purpose of the Labour Party. We were established in 1916, 107 years ago, by working people in New Zealand for the purpose of securing economic justice for the working people of this country, making sure that the people who work and produce things and services and who keep our public services going, who work in our shops, our factories, our call centres, all parts of our economy, can have a decent life and a seat at the table. That's what the Labour Party has always been, and whenever we've been successful in winning government, it's been because working people have seen that we are there to back them and that we will do things to make their lives better. And so my vision for the Labour Party, and I think the only way that we win back government, is by rebuilding that confidence. That whether you're a working person who's an employee in a call centre, maybe you're working hard, owning a small lawn mowing business, maybe you're caring for your elderly parents, working 24/7 to do that, you know that we're on your side and that you know that we're going to do some things that are going to make life better. I'm confident we can do it, but we really have to refocus. Tax is not the only part of that, but we've tripped over it several times now over the last 10 years. And until we settle our position on tax, and until we have a progressive tax policy, in my view, that deals with the inequalities of wealth that are built up in our society, it will be difficult for us to motivate our activists and our board membership to really fight and win government.
But we've just had an election campaign devoted to why you need a tax cut. We're not overtaxed in New Zealand, but income is overtaxed in comparison to capital and in comparison to wealth. And we're not going to change any of the fundamental economic settings in New Zealand unless we change that, and we're never going to change the inequality settings in New Zealand, importantly, unless we change those revenue settings.
People were just talking to me about cost of living and how expensive everything was at the supermarket. I didn't have many conversations about what a wealth tax would do or what a capital gains tax would do. And if we were able to have a fairer tax system where we put more revenue into our economy, which we could put into ensuring we were funding more things for our communities, then things wouldn't seem so expensive and people would have be able to live lives where they weren't spending so much money or feeling like they couldn't afford anything.
For Labour, what is the way that we can best frame this issue and start that conversation with the electorate? Is it about taxing the rich and fairness? Or is it about how do we build a thriving economy where everyone benefits?
For me, it is about fairness. That is where a lot of my interest in that area is coming from. A wealth tax, the one that we designed, would affect only 1.3% of people who, as Craig has said, have extremely high levels as well. The plan was to give everyone else in the country a tax cut. That resonates with me. At the same time, I think a broader agenda on economic justice is not just about tax. It is partly about understanding why our economy looks the way it does at the moment and what the tax system has to do with that. At the moment, our incentives are set up so that New Zealanders succeed at the expense of other New Zealanders, and particularly future generations. We need an economy where the incentives are that you succeed alongside other people, fair pay agreements, and things that shift the initial distribution of income through the market as opposed to just doing it through the tax and transfer system are extremely important there.
It's actually about designing the right tax system rather than hooking all of our focus onto just one type of tax at a particular time. And it may well be different for very, very high income or very, very high net wealth individuals, where you say actually the capital gain there is just wealth gain, and so therefore how do we tax that in different ways? So rather than getting stuck on one form or another, the question we should be asking is how do we have a revenue system that drives the kinds of outcomes we want to see, where we create great jobs in New Zealand, sustainable jobs in New Zealand, and we have revenue settings that support investment in those areas rather than in something else, in housing or in speculative growth.
It's hard getting elected, and it's hard getting elected as the Labour Party. And so this has felt like, in some of the elections we've had, really difficult ones, it's felt like one step too far. And that's why our commitment to the policy has kind of faltered. How do we get over that?
What I find people forget often is that we're working within a political system, and within that political system we are closer to the centre than some of our left-wing parties. And that doesn't mean that we can't be bold with policy, but it just means we have to take into account two things. We have to take into account culture, which is our values of our party and what we believe in, but also strategy and political strategy. And balancing those can be really hard. And I think we've balanced them possibly. We could have done a better job over the last little while.
We all know that in the 1980s and 90s, the values and the policies of the left took a real battering when we had that free market revolution. And sometimes I think because of that experience, we're still a little bit afraid of our own shadow. We're afraid that if we say something that's too bold or seen as too progressive, that will get kicked in the teeth, that people don't like that stuff. Well, we always have to be strategic and focused about our policies. We can't just rush into anything. The thing I think about this issue is that time and time again, when we actually ask the right questions of people tell us they want a fairer society. People tell us that on the whole they're willing to pay a fairer rate of tax and potentially even more tax for better public services. People tell us that they think our society is too unequal and government should do things to make it more equal. And I think that actually if we form up a really sound policy, which we've done the hard work on, the hard yards internally, and then we face outwards with some confidence, and we ground the argument in those values and those things that we know that people believe, I think it's winnable. And my own experience of that in government was with fair pay agreements. We were told by the media, oh, this is so controversial. It's a huge change in our industrial relations framework, and yes, it was. But I think we did the work. We didn't apologise for it. We didn't go out and say, oh, don't worry about this bit, and try and minimise the impact of it. We said, this is a big change, and we need to make a big change, because these people who do work in our society, like our cleaners and our security guards and our supermarket workers, they keep us going through COVID, and the worst paid people in the country. People said, yeah, that's not fair. We said, Australia does this, and their rate of productivity is higher than ours. We asked people, is it fair that we have a race to the bottom with people's wages and conditions, people in your community? People said no. And I think we won the argument on fair pay agreements.
We've heard from panellists here what economic justice looks like for our field. Whether it be in terms of industrial reform, be it in terms of tax reform, be it in terms of labour market reform, in terms of climate change action. There's a bunch of things that we want to do, and we need to do to deliver a better economy. So for me, economic justice is actually about setting our vision of the economy right and having the right vision for New Zealand.